Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we're going to find out who Martinico is. Among the countless nightmares presented in the Separate Ways DLC of the acclaimed Resident Evil 4 remake, there stands out a creature that has quickly earned a special place among the most terrifying and iconic enemies of the saga. Martinico. Also nicknamed the Plague Beast, Martinico is not just another monster in the vast Resident Evil universe. His story is truly one marked by tragedy and cruelty, a living testament to the darkest and most ruthless side of biological experimentation within the cult of Los Iluminados. Far from being a mere faceless abomination without a past, Martinico was once a human, trapped and sacrificed in one of the secret laboratories hidden on that remote island under the iron control of Lord Osmond Saddler. This man, transformed into a monster, is the product of a fusion between the most advanced science and the deepest inhumanity. A grotesque experiment that used as its catalyst a fragment of amber containing the Mother Plague, an ancient parasite with almost unimaginable power and resilience. Prolonged exposure to that amber was the driving force behind his terrible metamorphosis. It not only deformed his body into a brutal mass of muscles and claws, but also granted him immense strength and resilience, almost superhuman. Martinico is, without a doubt, the physical embodiment of evil and limitless scientific ambition, a beast that seems untamable and whose mere presence instills terror and despair in anyone who crosses his path. But his story does not end there. The figure of Martinico has fascinated the fan community of both the remake and the DLC alike, not only for his imposing appearance or fierce nature, but because his background adds a deep and dark layer to the Resident Evil 4 universe. For this reason, today we will dive into an exhaustive analysis exploring his origins and his role within the narrative of the Separate Ways expansion. We will review documents scattered throughout the game, unraveling the clues they offer about the chronology of his creation, as well as a detailed study of his abilities, behavior, and the vulnerabilities that allow him to be fought. Although official information about Martinico is limited, the game provides us with enough documents to reconstruct his story in detail. Like other test subjects on the island, such as the ominous housekeeper peasant or the women who gave rise to the Novistadors, Martinico was originally a human infected after Osmond Saddler's arrival and the establishment of the cult of Los Iluminados, who quickly took absolute control of Salazar Castle and its surroundings. Under Saddler's relentless direction and his sect, an exhaustive biological investigation began to understand and harness the plagues, with the ambition of creating a new form of human life that fused the strength of arthropods with human intelligence. Martinico was one of many infected, but his case stood out due to a congenital deformity and mental delay that made him unfit for combat or tactical tasks. Because of this, he was relegated to an experimental subject in the laboratories, involuntarily collaborating in the cult's risky scientific experiments. The real turning point in his transformation was the discovery of a particularly potent fragment of amber containing a Mother Plague far more powerful than the one Osmond Saddler carried. Dr. Anibal Garcia Escudero was the scientist responsible for overseeing these amber experiments. In one of her reports, she describes how the research continues and improves, noting that they have begun to better understand the properties of amber, although much remains to be discovered. This material not only strengthens the parasites, but also optimizes the symbiotic relationship between the host and the plague, achieving promising results that could pave the way for the creation of even more evolved species. This report reveals the true strategic value of amber. It is the main source of Saddler's immense power and the key element for enhancing experimental subjects. Martinico was undoubtedly one of those privileged destined to become a living aberration with capabilities far beyond the natural, but he was also condemned to a life of suffering and isolation. An additional document delves into the concrete effects Amber had on Martinico. It details that the effects surpassed initial expectations, transforming an originally fragile and marginalized individual into a muscular colossus with unusual endurance and size. Furthermore, it granted him extraordinary regenerative abilities that made him practically immune to conventional weapons used by the island's personnel. Nevertheless, despite this impressive physical mutation, his mental capacity remained limited, keeping him in a state of primitive ferocity and savagery. Thus, Martinico became an unstoppable force confined to the laboratories, especially near the communications area, a crucial place for the cult's security and control. Finally, when Ada Wong infiltrates the island on her secret mission, while Leon S. Kennedy is also trapped in that hell, chaos erupts. Martinico manages to break free, unleashing his fury against scientists and researchers, leaving behind a trail of destruction and terror. Despite efforts to contain him with laser security systems, the creature remains at large, a constant threat representing the failure of control and sanity on that cursed island. When Ada Wong stormed into the dark and oppressive facilities on the island, her objective was clear and precise: to infiltrate the communications system to sabotage the operations of Los Iluminados. However, what she found was far more terrifying than she could have imagined. Amid the shadowy halls and corridors, a gigantic and menacing presence materialized before her. The creature known as Martinico. A deep, deafening roar escaped from that colossal beast, like a warning signal to anyone who dared to challenge its domain. It was the beginning of a relentless pursuit, a deadly struggle that tested every fiber, every reflex, and every ounce of skill of the spy. Ada, true to her reputation as an unbreakable agent and expert in high-stakes situations, deployed all her agility and cunning to evade the monstrous creature. With silent and calculated movements, she managed to take refuge in a room inaccessible to Martinico, gaining a crucial moment to reorganize her plans and catch her breath. Nevertheless, she knew that this brief respite would only be the start of a deadly game where every second counted. Moving with the caution and precision of someone who knows the terrain perfectly, Ada explored the drainage ducts, those narrow and gloomy passages that connected the different areas of the facility. She tried to avoid direct confrontations with the beast, but the threat of Martinico was constant, a lurking shadow that left no room for error. When she once again came face to face with him, she relied on her ingenuity and used her special grappling hook to propel herself to the second floor, an elevated and safe space that the creature could not reach. This maneuver not only demonstrated her ability to adapt quickly, but also highlighted her experience in hostile and controlled environments. Later, Ada's tenacity was rewarded when she managed to partially disable the complex laser security system protecting the communications center. With skill and technological knowledge, she hacked the communications, achieving a key victory that could change the course of the mission and provide an opportunity to stop Los Iluminados. But just as she tried to escape, danger manifested with all its fury. Martinico, in an act of uncontrollable rage, broke through a wall with brutal force, launching himself in pursuit of Ada with unstoppable ferocity. At that critical moment, the laser system activated automatically, unleashing 2 waves of deadly beams that pierced the room. With an impressive combination of acrobatic movements and prodigious reflexes, Ada dodged each ray, jumping, rolling, and moving with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. The laser beams, however, struck Martinico directly, causing severe wounds that, although they did not eliminate him, made him retreat momentarily. But the battle was far from over. The third wave of beams, this time composed of much more precise and impossible to avoid rectangular rays, nearly caught the spy. However, at the last second, Ada used her grappling hook again to launch herself out of the room, barely escaping certain death. Meanwhile, Martinico, unable to dodge the attacks, ended up succumbing under the relentless siege of the lasers. His body lay scattered across the floor in grotesque patches of infected flesh, a macabre testament to the creature's brutality and the fierce battle fought within those cold facilities. After this intense confrontation, it is time to delve into the very essence of Martinico, a creature that not only impresses with its strength, but represents a terrifying fusion of science and horror. His physical appearance is imposing and unique, a hunched humanoid whose great stature and bulk are a direct result of the mutation caused by the amber. Martinico appears as a mutant colossus, with two enormous, muscular arms ending in colossal hands capable of crushing any obstacle with ease. His legs, shorter and thinner by comparison, possess an extra joint that gives him a digitigrade gait similar to certain wild beasts, contributing to his unsettling look and unusual mobility. His robust body is dominated by a prominent hump that shifts the torso forward, giving the impression of overwhelming weight and power. Hanging from his pale, rough, and cracked skin are tattered scraps of dark cloth and bandages that cover his limbs and torso, vestiges of his prolonged captivity and torture. On his wrists and left ankle, he still drags metal shackles and chains, symbols of his imprisonment that have become part of his monstrous identity. Embedded at various points in his skin are metal nails and sharp spikes inserted to contain him, a cruel form of constant torture that his body, thanks to accelerated regeneration, cannot fully heal. This perpetual pain fuels his fury and violence, transforming him into a creature driven by suffering and rage. His head, elongated and with reptilian features, reflects the failed experiments of Osmond Sadler, who sought to create an infected being controllable through a hive mind. Although Sadler managed to create the Regenerators, beings with incredible healing abilities but lacking intelligence or control, Martinico represents a failed hybrid, a mix of brute strength and instinctive ferocity. Inspired by salamanders, known for their regenerative capacity, scientists infected these creatures with the plagues to create monsters like the one in the lake. In Martinico, that reptilian influence is clearly manifested. His mouth is wide and filled with sharp teeth, and his small yellow eyes gleam from the sides of his skull, giving him a blood-chilling gaze. This unique combination makes Martinico a terrifying and original presence, a macabre hybrid that fuses the characteristics of giant plague-infected creatures with the primitive ferocity of the Regenerators. Regarding his abilities, Martinico possesses enormous strength, capable of easily lifting and tearing apart an adult. His jaws, reinforced with sharp fangs, pose a real threat in close combat. His endurance is almost superhuman. Even conventional weapons and rocket launchers fail to inflict significant damage. His healing factor surpasses that of the Regenerators, regenerating from any wound in a matter of seconds. Contrary to what his large size might suggest, Martinico moves with surprising agility and speed, a lethal combination that turns every encounter into an extremely dangerous battle. However, he is not invincible. His limited intelligence sometimes causes him to observe with curiosity instead of attacking immediately, allowing clever enemies, like Ada, to take advantage of those moments to set traps, such as the deadly laser grid that ultimately weakened him. The constant pain caused by the embedded nails makes him even more aggressive, instinctively attacking everything around him in an attempt to relieve his suffering, even if only temporarily. Finally, his main weaknesses are prolonged exposure to laser systems and explosions, damages his regeneration cannot heal quickly, and which represent the only hope to stop this seemingly unstoppable beast.